So I suppose we can start. Nice that the fog has lifted, and after the cloud of annoying darkness, nothingness, the sun has risen, and we can celebrate life again. And in a way, this talk is about life. It's about the inner evolution which takes place according to the Sufis, and especially according to Rumi, so that the soul can find its real life again. So in fact, death and life are not such great opposites as the mind wants them to be. Sometimes it is saying the same thing from two different angles. Some of us who have been with Mrs. Sviri will remember that she used to say that death is just an invention of the mind. It's a different state of being. And she would say, here's my hand, here's my palm or hand, you know. You can look at it from this side, you can look at it from this side. From each angle it will look different, but still it is the same hand. So this is the way that one approaches the question of life and death. You can look at it from this side, you can look at it from that side. It's one and the same, and it really depends which angle one looks at. Now, I'd like to say a few words how this talk came about, and perhaps also a few words about the title. The title of the talk is, it is the function which creates the organ. And this is a statement which was made by Mrs. Sviri with relation to a particular article which she had read many years ago. And in the in the spring of 1993, when I came back to London from Inverness, and Llewellyn said to me, you know, the stations of the heart are endless, so you can make as many talks as you want about the stations of the heart. I had a kind of vision of 9 talks, and I went through and produced 9 talks which were delivered in London for the group in London and for whoever came to join the group. But then after the 9th, I felt, and I also announced, that this is going to be the last talk. And I had a message from Mrs. Sviri, and these things are never done directly, so she never directly said anything, do this or do that, but she created a situation where at least I understood that she felt a talk has to be given about that subject or that statement. It is the function which creates the organ. So what did it mean to her? I'm not sure that I can interpret. And this is as much an enigmatic statement as any other statement, and everyone is free to ponder and to meditate and to figure out what it really means. But what was the context in which she produced this statement? When she came back, and this is what she had related, when she was preparing herself to go back to London from India, she asked by sub what she was supposed to do in London. And he said, lecture. And she asked, lecture about what? And he said, lecture on Sufism. And she said, "But you have taught me nothing about Sufism. So what am I to talk about? How am I to talk about?" And he simply said, "You will find out." So she came to London, and eventually she started lecturing for the Theosophical Society in London. And she would have topics, sometimes topics which were imposed upon her. Like one time she had to talk about St. Paul, and she didn't even know. She said, "I was not a very good Christian, and here I was supposed to talk about St. Paul." But she managed. And each time that she stood on the podium and she addressed the public, she would be carried away by memories of Baisab and by memories of her at Baisab's place. And she would be drawn to talk about these experiences rather than about this specific topic that she was supposed to talk. Sometimes people were quite upset, and they said, in the program it says that you have to talk about this and that, and you talked about something else. But that's how it was. And there was one thing she took a vow to do, and this is never to talk about anything that she didn't experience herself. And to this she kept very rigorously. So in fact, whatever the subject, whatever the topic, she would always talk about what had been revealed to her, what had been opened up for her through her training with Baisab. Alongside this lecturing for the Theosophical Society, she did come upon articles and books about Sufism. So she did make an intellectual or a mental effort to study. Now, this would be in the late 60s, and there were very few books then. Now the market is inundated with books about Sufism. One doesn't know where to start. But at that time, there were not many. There were quite a few. And she studied them, she read them, and some articles which were published in periodicals. And the more she read, the more she discovered how everything that she had been taught by Baisab, not directly as a sort of mental or intellectual subject matter, but through being exposed to the energy of Baisab, everything correlated, everything coordinated, everything reverberated of these things that she started reading about in Nicholson or Arbery or whoever published then their little books about Sufism. And one day she was sitting in the round room of the British Library. It's a very famous landmark in London, this big round reading room. I think they are going to make of it now a kind of museum piece that people could just go and see, this big room where all these famous names, Oscar Wilde, Bernard Shaw, and other people used to come and sit and write the business. So she was sitting there, and she was reading an article which was written about Rumi. Now, I'm not sure who the author of this article is. Neither is Mrs. Tweedy. She never wrote down the name of the author. But it seems to be a Pakistani scholar who wrote this article about Rumi, which Mrs. Tweedy was reading one day at the British Library. It is possible that the title of the article is "The Nature of the Soul, Transcendental Self." I say that it is possible because this is written by hand, by Mrs. Tweedy's hand, on top of the manuscript, on top of the script, actually, the printed script that she made eventually of this article. So one is not absolutely sure whether this is her paraphrasing or this is really the title of the article. Whatever the case may be, she was extremely inspired by this article. She really felt that this article put everything in place, everything that she had experienced, everything that she had thought, everything that had happened to her was somehow put in place through reading this article. And more than that, she felt that the article was confirming her, was reassuring her that she has been given something of the living tradition, the tradition that never dies, the tradition that is passing on, transmitted from teacher to disciple, and that she has been given the transmission of this teaching from by sub to transmit on. So from this kind of vantage point, she felt that it's more than just the accumulative information that the article was presenting, but that it was a message for her. And so she copied this article, and she in fact copied it twice, because she was allowed to copy by hand in the British Library, but she couldn't bring her typewriter. Nowadays people can bring the little computers, but she had to do it twice. First of all, she copied the whole article by hand, and then at home she typed it on her typewriter. Now this is a very long article. I mean, it is like a small book. So in itself, this is an effort which everyone who knows Mrs. Sviri knows that she is capable of, because if she decides to do something, she will do it no matter how long it takes and no matter how much effort it is involved with. As I say, she created a situation for me where it became quite clear that she wanted this article or the message of the article to be offered in a talk. On page 11 of Mrs. Sviri's typescript, she wrote in her handwriting this statement: "It is the function which creates the organ." And let me read the lines which forward this statement. These lines are a quotation from Rumi as they appear in these articles that we read. If there were no necessity, the seven heavens would not have stepped out of non-existence. The sun, the moon, and the stars could not have come into existence without a necessity. So necessity is the cause of all existence. And according to his necessity, man is endowed with organs. And these lines are underlined, probably by her. According to his necessity, man is endowed with organs. Therefore, O needy one, increase you need, so God's beneficence may be moved to bestow new instruments of life on you. Therefore, O needy one, increase you need. Many of us have heard these words repeated again and again by Tweedy in our casual meetings. The whole pivot of evolution, whether it's physical, psychological, spiritual, turns around need. And the need creates the organs which are necessary to fulfill that which is lacking. Because there is no need without the sense that something is missing, that something is lacking. Now there is a tradition in the collection of Muslim hadith, which is a collection of traditions, so not narrowly speaking Sufi, but much more wider than Sufism. This tradition is very exceptional, and it is related as a tradition which comes direct from God. I'd like to say something about that. There are two types of hadith, two types of pieces of traditions within the Muslim and the Sufi corpus. One is a hadith, a tradition which is recorded or attributed to the Prophet Muhammad and to his companions. And this is, in a way, a guideline for every good Muslims, how to behave, what to do, what not to do, so on and so forth. So the traditions are always, or more often than not, they are connected with the model that the Prophet and his associates represented for the congregation. But there is another corpus of traditions, and these are called Hadith Qudsi, sacred traditions, sacred hadith. And they are supposed to have come direct from God, and so someone has caught them by inspiration and has written them down. It could have been the Prophet, it could have been somebody else, but they really are inspired direct from God. So this piece of tradition that I'd like to recall now is this. I was a hidden treasure, and I wanted to be known. Therefore, I created creation. I personally think that it is one of the deepest pieces of tradition that any religion has come up with. Because if we meditate on it, and each of us will be guided to meditate on it in a different way, but really what it means somewhere is that even in God there is a want. Even in God there is a desire. Even in God there is a lack which has to be fulfilled. And what is this want? What is this lack? To be known. When God was and nothing was, there was this unmanifested darkness, this unmanifested black hole, if you wish, all withdrawn into itself. It was a hidden treasure. But something was stirred up within the innermost of God, if we can even speak about it in these terms, to manifest itself, to become known. So this need, this desire, and the tradition is very specific that this is a desire. I desired to be known. In Arabic, ashiktu, ahabtu, I desired to be known. So all of us, all there is actually God knowing itself. It's actually the manifestation of this treasure trove which was hidden. So in such few words, I was a hidden treasure and I desired to be known. So I created creation. Now, so very, very much at the basic, at the core of everything that is, there is a desire, there is a want, and this want has to be filled. Now, what would be this want in terms of the evolution of human beings? To go back to Rumi, because this article is very much in the context of Rumi's theory of evolution. Well, Rumi, most of us know, lived in the 13th century, and I'm saying this only in order to put some ideas in a historical context, in the context of the history of ideas. Now, the contemporary view of life in these Middle Ages was that creation is made of a scheme, a hierarchical scheme of being. And that this scheme of being, this cosmological scheme of being, can be seen either from the uppermost or from the lowermost. But whichever way it is looked upon, it is made of spheres. It is made of spheres or realms of being. Very up high is the transcendental realm of the One. And the One produced out of itself, out of this need, out of this desire to become known, produced out of itself, emanated out of itself, another realm. And this emanated yet another realm, and a lower one, and a lower one, and a lower one. So there are these celestial realms emanating from the divine, coming lower and lower, becoming denser and denser as they become remote or more remote from the origin. And eventually creating this world of ours, which in the terms of these current philosophies of the Middle Ages was known as the sublunar world, is the world which lies beneath the moon. And in this world, what play part are the elements, the four elements: water, earth, fire, and air. And everything that exists in a material form, everything that comes into being but is also destined to go back into annihilation, physically or spiritually, is made out of these four elements. So here these four elements manifest themselves in the spheres of being, in the realms of being of this sublunar world. Now let's look at it now from the lowest for a minute. The lowest form of life, or the lowest realm of life in this sublunar world of ours, is the world of the minerals, the inanimate, the stones, the metals, the minerals. They are the most remote from the source, and therefore they look to us inanimate. Now we know now, as Rumi knew so long ago, that they only appear to be inanimate, because in fact everything inside revolves. There are atoms, there's movement, but it's a very slow movement, comparatively speaking. Then there comes another stage of evolution, that from this world of minerals emerge or is developed the world of plants, the vegetative realm. And this realm has more freedom, some more freedom. It moves in the wind. It grows branches and leaves and fruits, but it's still tucked, it's still stuck to the earth. It is connected, it cannot move about. So this lack of freedom comes symbolically from the fact that it is also very remote from the source of being. Then comes the next realm, which is the realm of the animal. The animals have movement, have freedom to move, but they are governed by instincts. So this is much more free in relation to the minerals and the and the plants, but it's still quite restricted. The evolution or the possibilities of the evolution of animals are quite restricted because they are governed by the instincts. The main drive that they have is to keep alive, to survive. From this, the next realm evolves, and this is the realm of man. And the realm of man has much more freedom because, not only because it has developed his arms and legs and fingers so that it can do things, hold things, manipulate, create, but also because in him the mind has been developed. The intellect has been developed. So the intellect of the mind, of the reason, is that by which men make choices. Animals can make only very minimal choices. Men can make more choices. But still, it is quite limited. And here comes the crucial thing. Now, this is the state of being of most human beings within the confines of these four realms, these four realms which are under the moon, the sublunar realms. And for some, it creates a sense of prison. It creates a sense of confinement. And why? Because deep down in the clay from which God had shaped the human being, deep down there is this substance which God had breathed into it on the day of creation, on this symbolic day when God had collected all the earth of the world and had shaped this human being in his own hands. This is very important. I mean, in the Quran as well as in the Old Testament, there is this phrase, I have created in my own hands. And the Sufis go very much and talk a lot about it, that in this way human beings have been created in a different, totally different mode to anything else. Anything else that was created through a word, through letters. These are the letters of creation. God said, be, and the thing was. This is in the Bible, and this is also in the Quran. And so these, in Arabic, it is kun. Kun. And these two letters, the ka and the nun, have become permeated with symbolic and mystical meanings. But man was not created through the letters. Man was not created through the word be. Man was created in the hands of God. So thence the intimacy. Thence the feeling of, but we were held. We were so close. We were shaped in the hands of God. Now through this shaping in the hands and through this breathing of the Spirit into the clay, into this dead matter which is made of minerals, something has been planted into human beings. And this is the germs, the seeds of the soul. Now when these awaken, and only when these awaken, can man come out of the confinement of the prohibiting laws, natural laws, of the sublunar world. And so when something awakens, there is the possibility of these seeds to grow more and more and more. So eventually they can create the organ by which the journey can be made back through the different realms of being up to the source of being, the one source of being. So what the soul is really called upon to do is to awaken, to prepare the organs, the vehicles of transportation through all the density of the lower worlds, one by one by one, through the moon and the sun and the planets and all the celestial angelic spheres, up to the throne of glory and even beyond. Because that's where the soul comes from. Awake, awake. The sleepy season is over. The swallow flies. Its feathered wings radiate in the blazing sun. So that's, in essence, the message which mystics have transmitted from one generation to the other, and doesn't really matter very much what is the organized container in which this message has been transmitted, because those who have ears will hear the message in whichever guise it comes. And who are those who have the ears? Those who are awakened to the need, those who are awakened to the lack. And so it has become clearer and clearer that each and every one of us who comes into the world carries with him or with her a very, very faint, a very, very dim memory of a life fulfilled. Life which is complete, fulfilled not in the sense of some appetites which are fulfilled, because the appetites can be fulfilled only momentarily. And there's nothing wrong with fulfilling the appetites, the needs of the appetites. But what is wrong is with confusing the needs of the appetites with the real need of the soul. The need of the soul will never be fulfilled by fulfilling the appetites. Therefore, we go around and we always feel unfulfilled. We always feel somewhat starved. Why? Because we have had this experience. Otherwise, it couldn't have happened. That we carry with us some kind of imprint of the life fulfilled, of the complete life. And therefore, Sufis talk about Sufism, about mysticism, not so much as the path of mysteries of the beyond, but as the path of mysteries of the innermost, the path in which we awaken to realize more and more and more about the potentialities within. But we also have to allow it to grow. We have to make the organs. Otherwise, we'll just stay with this dim memory, which will sometime come up in meditation or in dreams. And sometimes a dream will come, like Jerry's dream, for instance, which is so amazing and so archetypal, because it comes from a secret place within, where one is confronted in a symbolic way with one higher self, with one's potentiality. And it's interesting that it is a dream of a hunter, because the hunter always wants to hunt that which represents its fullness. So we as seekers always want to hunt the teacher, and the teacher wants to hunt us, because this is the completion. The disciple completes the teacher completes the disciple. And Sufis have talked about the complete man. Sometimes it is translated as the perfect man. Al-insan al-kamil. I personally think, but God knows best, that the right translation or the better translation should be the complete man, not so much the perfect, because perfect immediately gives us connotation of someone who is holy and doesn't do any evil or any bad things, and it immediately creates a projection. A complete man, a complete circle, someone who has completed himself or herself in that sense of not only awakening up momentarily to this need, but following it up and making a commitment to follow it up throughout one's life. This is really the difficult part of it. This is why the path, really, this path of evolution demands so many efforts. Really the efforts are not enough if there is no grace. But the grace will not come without the efforts. It simply can't, except maybe in very, very rare cases. Perhaps someone has made the journey so many incarnations before. I don't know. Some people say this, that grace will come like that in one lifetime. But before new organs of perception can be developed, before these new seeds can develop into a blossoming tree, the human being has to become dissatisfied with the present equipment of life. There has to be dissatisfaction. There has to be discontent, if this is right to say so in English. Now this, of course, everything goes in paradoxes, because we also hear that the yogi's main feature is content. The yogi is content, surrenders, accepts. It cannot be done unconsciously. If the surrender, you asked, I think, about the difference between this, was it you that asked about the surrender which is out of laziness and the other type of surrender? Okay? It has to do with consciousness. It's very easy sometimes to use surrender and acceptance as an excuse if it comes from a state of unconsciousness. When it is conscious, and the whole thing is about consciousness, because again, after all, this path of evolution can be easily misunderstood and interpreted in Darwinian terms. Everything evolves sort of mechanically. It does not evolve mechanically. This leap out of the confinement of the sublunar world can only be done consciously if one makes a purpose and a commitment to do so. The human being must be aware of a need which cannot be fulfilled by means of the old organs. We have all these senses, and we have the mind, and yet we are not fulfilled. Indeed, this need has to grow in the human being to immense proportions, to acquire a devastating magnitude. Otherwise, no substantial change can take place out of the state of dissatisfaction and disillusionment. Only some shilly-shallying with fantasies about change. This is one of the dangers, one of the pitfalls, that we fantasize that we change. We fantasize. We are too immersed in our dreams and dream interpretation, but we don't act upon it. Dreams must be lived. And this is not only the mystics, but also Jung, whether we take him as a mystic or not, has said the dreams must be lived. It's not enough to see the dream, to have a relationship to the dream, to interpret the dream, to be moved by the dream. The dream has to have this energy with which it can help us to make the commitment. Otherwise, we just sit there and fantasize about change. How to describe such a need? Now, Tweedy tells the story of the fish who were separated from each other. When the primordial sea, which had covered the whole of the planet, became fragmented, and when pieces of dry land separated between sea and sea, then some fish longed to reunite with their mates in other seas. See, the word long always comes up. This is the longing which is underlying all this unfulfillment, all these needs. So the fish who had been together, and this is actually also the image that Rumi does with the souls. The souls in the uppermost have been all one. So that's also why we congregate. We dimly remember that we were together as one soul. So that's why we hang on to a ray of a ray which is the path, the specific path, because we have been there together, we have an affinity. So the fish longed to reunite with their mates in other seas. And the longing was as great as their despair. That's also important. It is the despair of becoming fulfilled. We try this, we try that, we go to classes, we take a degree, we go dancing, we have dates, we marry, we have children, we do all these things, and it's fine, but we are not fulfilled. So the longing has to be as great as the despair, because the fish did not have any organ which would enable them to make the journey to that other bit of sea. So they were totally stuck in an agonizing state and were slowly dying of longing. And this is a state which many of us are familiar with. The longing becomes so great. The despair is so enormous. The need is overwhelming that we don't know what to do but sit and die. Many centuries passed, perhaps millennia, but the wretched longing did not subside. The fish were dying of it in their multitudes, day by day, year by year, eon by eon. Then, one day, a miracle. A little tail, small feet, tiny claws to clutch the earth with, and some fish with tremendous willpower managed to pull themselves up and out of the sea and into the earth. See how everything is very subtle. It's tremendous willpower, but a miracle has also to happen. Gradually, they learned how to crawl, how to breathe, how to hop, how to walk, how to run, how to climb up mountains, how to climb down deep canyons. They could move now from their little bit of sea to the vast ocean of their primordial being. But first, they had to die out of despair and longing. New organs have been created for them because there was such a great need for them in the fish. Therefore, O needy one, increase your need. Need is one thing which is needed. But there is another thing which is involved in that. It is not only the dim memory that we have of our primordial state of being. And really, I say it in sort of parentheses, sometimes it's better that this memory becomes totally unconscious and rests there in peace. It's much easier because our life becomes so wretched, so difficult once this awakening becomes. But at the same time it becomes also so much richer and so much more fulfilled. So what is the other thing that strengthens or make it possible that this dim memory becomes less dim? This is the reflection of someone who has awakened. That's why it is said that the teacher is needed. The teacher is someone who is a few steps ahead. And this is important because in this whole scheme of evolution, there is the sense of a hierarchy. Yes, we do the journey alone, from the alone to the alone. We have to make the effort ourselves. Each fish alone had to struggle for these little organs to be created, and then to make the struggle to work with these organs. But the drive also comes from the reflection of that person or that something which had developed a little bit further ahead of us. Now, what is created between the lower and the higher is not a sense of envy. It can happen that it is a sense of envy, but this does not help us very much. But what helps us is when love is created between the lower and the higher. And this has been the belief not only of the Sufis, but of many groups, religious and mystical groups in the Middle Ages and in antiquity and in late antiquity, that there is this love between the lower and the higher. And through this love, the lower wants to assimilate into the higher, to become the higher. Each level of being wants to become higher. And this is right and this is true not only for human beings, but it's also true for the minerals. The minerals want to become plants. Because they fall in love with this higher realm of being which they are in touch with. The plants want to become, love to become animals, and the animals love to become human beings. So that energy which has the thrust to enable these organs to develop and to, first of all, to awaken and then to develop is this love of the higher. It is said that in the end, love is the want and need for something. Hence, need is the root, and the needed thing is the branch. I say, says Rumi, after all, when you speak out of need. Your need brings your words into existence. So need is prior, and the words came into being from it. The nous of all existence is need. Man's instrument is the extent of his need. The function creates the organ. So, O needful man, quickly increase your need. Where there are questions, answers will be given. Where there are ships, water will flow. Spend less time seeking water and acquire thirst. Then water will gush from above and below. Some more verses from Rumi. The cry was heard, "O seeker, come," like a beggar. Bounty is in need of beggars. God has given hunger to His elect so that they may become mighty lions. Or those with lion dreams, beware. Pain is an alchemy that renovates. Where is indifference when pain intervenes? Beware. Do not sigh coldly in your indifference. Seek pain. Seek pain. 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 God's mercy is water. It moves only towards low ground. I will become dust and mercy's object in order to reach the all-merciful. God's wisdom made us lovers of one another. In fact, all the particles of the world are in love and looking for lovers. Pieces of straw tremble in the presence of amber. We tremble like iron filings welcoming the magnet. The desire of each lover is that the work of the other be perfected. By this man and woman cooperation, the world gets preserved. Generation occurs. Every part of the cosmos draws towards its mate. So we fall in love. We can fall in love with our projection of our inner beauty, of our inner completion, and throw it upon someone who sometimes very casually passes by. Some of you may have seen this wonderful play of Shakespeare, Midsummer Night's Dream. There was recently an extremely lovely production that I went to see in the Barbican in London. And it was so apparent, so beautifully done, so playfully made, how love is a projection. But we say it, and it was played out. This queen of the forest, this queen of the night, which falls in love with a donkey, you know. Or this confusion of the lovers. Whom do they love? Looking for one lover, finding another one, waking up in the arms of another, trying and changing, and all this projection business working all the time in such a wonderfully playful way. And we can be caught up in this playfulness so that we forget all the rest of it. And sometimes we project this inner completion onto a teacher. People fall in love with a teacher. You can call it transference if you come from some kind of psychological background. It's fine. I mean, this is modern times. We use modern terminology, but terminology is only terminology. This is the falling in love with our real beauty. But love has to be, because otherwise I think I should say love has to be with that higher being into which we want to assimilate. Otherwise, it remains caught up in the dream figments. So there has to be this love, and it works on all the levels. For a time, you were the four elements. For a time, you were an animal. Now you have been a spirit. So become the beloved. Become the beloved. Don't stop. That's your beauty which is reflected there. When a mineral turns its face toward the plant kingdom, life grows up from the tree of its good fortune. And the mineral becomes a plant. Every plant that turns towards the spirit drinks from the fountain of life like Khidr. Then when the spirit turns towards the beloved, it spreads its bedroll in everlasting life. This is the wedding. This is the marriage. It spreads its bedroll in everlasting life. And this is a two-way traffic. As the lover needs the beloved, so the beloved needs the lover. And that's why I mentioned this tremendous hadith, a tremendous tradition. I was a hidden treasure and I wanted to be known. No lover seeks union without his beloved seeking him. And that was first, because there has to be someone who awakens. When the lightning of love for the loved one flashes in this heart, know that there is also love in that heart. When love for God has doubled in your heart, without doubt, God has love for you. So if we think, oh, how insignificant we are, the teacher does not look at our direction. God has forgotten us. We are so unimportant. Measure your love for God and you'll know how God loves you. This thirst in our souls is the attraction of the water. We belong to it, and it belongs to us. You see, really these poets, Attar, Rumi, they have become this complete man, so they can see things in toto, in a completion. And therefore everything counts, the minerals, the plants, the animals, human beings who are trapped in their minds. Never mind, everyone is a lover. Everyone loves to become better. Everyone loves to become perfect because everything wants to go back to its source. The salmon know it. They find the way into the source which had bred them. And they do the journey from the wide ocean back to the stream where they have been begotten, because they retain this memory. Where? How? Somewhere, somehow. When they need to procreate, they find the way. So a way is given, an organ is given, but it has to be developed. And there is another thing that has to be borne in mind on this journey. And this is that when we awake to the possibilities, we also become awake to the need to let go of what we have been accustomed to for the sake of that which we want to become. But there is a moment when we are neither here nor there. We are not yet there, so now we can let go. No, we have to leap into the unknown. We have to leap into the darkness. And this creates fear. Because it's the basic instinct of survival. The basic instinct of survival does not want change in the organic sense of the word. We are as we are, unfulfilled, not totally perfect, okay, but we are used to it. This is our trodden path. Why should I leave it for something that I don't know for sure? So there is a tremendous fear of death. And this fear of death has to be reckoned with. And again, this comes up in dreams. And this group is a container, is an alchemical container for the dreams to come up, to be shared, to be acknowledged, to be seen, and then to say, yes. And if nothing else helps, then a few lines of Rumi May. I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and I was man. It all happened to me. I went through these progressive lines. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Yet once more I shall die as man, to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood, I must pass on. This is a tremendous message that this path of mysticism has, that the complete human being is above the angels. Has to be, because the angels are where they are. And man has to overcome the mineral in him, the plant in him, the animal in him. But even from angelhood I must pass on. All except God perish. So you see, what is the goal? The everlasting. When I have sacrificed my angel soul, I shall become what no mind has ever conceived. Remember, become the beloved. Oh, let me not exist, for non-existence proclaims in organ tones, to him we shall return.